Thank you once again to all our speakers for an inspiring start to Restore 25. Today's opening session highlights both the scale of India's restoration opportunity and the collective leadership needed to drive it forward. I'm really happy that you found the restoration exhibition space so inviting and enticing, and we hope that you will continue perusing those posters, speaking to the restoration champions, really understanding how to make an investable restoration economy. Thank you for that video. I'd like to invite Siddharth Edike from WRI-India to lead us into the next panel. Thank you, Siddharth.
Thank you, Jaskiran. So good morning, everyone. I'm Siddharth, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the first panel discussion of this two-day event. The panel discussion is titled Learning from Pilot to Scale, demonstrating the salience of place-based restoration. So this session brings together leaders who have shaped landscape restoration across India through community partnerships, governance innovations, agroecological models, digital transformation, and local institutional strengthening. At the core, this session is about shared leadership. We all know that restoration succeeds when science, community knowledge, institutions, and market systems come together. So today we explore how these collaborative models are being built, tested, and scaled. But before we begin this panel, I'm delighted to announce the launch of our new Citizen Science app. It's a monitoring tool that combines citizen science and geospatial techniques to assess restoration interventions. To tell us more about it, I'd like to invite my colleague Siddharthan to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Siddharthan, a Senior Program Associate with Food, Land and Water Program at WRI-India. Today, we are excited to launch the Citizen Science mobile application tool designed to strengthen restoration monitoring through community participation and reliable field data collection. This app brings together restoration champions, local partners, project teams, placing them at the center of tracking restoration progress. So at WRI-India, our work follows simple approach, a clear approach: count it, change it, and scale it. Count it by generating credible data and analysis to understand challenges and opportunities. Change it by turning those insights into action on ground, working closely with communities, partners, and local governments. Scale it by taking successful innovations and expanding them across regions, programs, and landscapes. The India Restoration Atlas, one of our flagship knowledge platforms, brings together the best available national data sets to guide restoration planning. It helps answer three essential questions: where can forest and tree cover can be protected or improved, and what carbon benefits can be achieved, what restoration interventions already exist across states and who are its primary actors, what enabling conditions and risk influence the success of restoration efforts. Sindhi district in Madhya Pradesh was one of our priority landscapes. Deep dive analysis showed that the district had over 350,000 hectares of restoration potential with 9 major restoration interventions. We implemented restoration interventions across 13 villages, including tree-based, soil and moisture conservation, agricultural interventions, and water-based interventions. Mapping these interventions and assessing ground realities made it clear that continuous monitoring is essential to track progress, understand survival and performance, and make decisions based on evidence. During implementation in CD, we realized that field monitoring often relied on technical experts or limited staff members, which meant we were not always capturing the entire picture. We needed a tool that local community members, field partners, and project teams could use easily. This led to the conceptualization, development, and testing of the citizen science mobile application. The Citizen Science app fills a major gap. It makes community-led restoration monitoring simple, structured, and scalable, all right from a mobile phone. The key features of the Citizen Science app includes dynamic survey forms that can be created and managed directly from the app, capture multiple geotagged photos and GPS points, which can be later converted to polygons, and offline data collection for rural and remote locations. Bilingual interface, the app can be accessed in English and Hindi, and it is very simple for non-technical users. After successful testing in CD, we scaled the app to other landscapes. Today in central India, more than 20 restoration champions with around 100 active users in 42 districts collecting field data covering 20,000 plus hectares of restoration interventions across Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra that supports monitoring needs for diverse interventions. I'm just sharing a short video highlighting the challenge of monitoring and the role of Citizen Science app. Okay, sorry.
Approach to restoration includes trees, agriculture, soil, and water-based interventions. But without reliable monitoring framework, restoration efforts cannot be measured, improved, or scaled. While local communities are best equipped to restore their lands, they often lack user-friendly tools that blend geospatial technology with participatory on-ground monitoring. The Citizen Science app aims to resolve this challenge. Developed by WRI-India, this mobile application brings together field-level observations collected by communities with geospatial information used by project teams, making restoration monitoring more grounded, accurate, and inclusive. This app enables users to create and manage dynamic survey forms, capture multiple GPS locations, and geotag photographs. Unlike other open source tools, this app is tailored specifically for non-technical users, offering an interface in Hindi and English, and offline data entry functionality for remote areas. We believe that this app will provide stakeholders with a versatile data collection tool that can be customized for different restoration interventions across landscapes. Tested in Siddhi district of Madhya Pradesh, this mobile app is being actively used by over 20 restoration champions across central India in Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, and Madhya Pradesh. By enabling communities to monitor and track their restoration efforts, we can help people stay connected to nature, climate, and the future they're helping to build.
Thank you. We officially launched the Citizen Science app today. Please scan the QR codes for both Android and iOS versions. And I'm handing back over to my colleague, Mr. Siddharth Yadaki.
Thank you so much, Siddharthan. So we'll now begin with our panel discussion. It's my pleasure to announce our moderator for this session, Ms. Zeenat Niazi, who's the Chief Advisor climate resilience and circular economy with development alternatives. Her expertise lies in sustainable consumption and production, circular economy transitions, decentralized development, and climate and disaster resilience in rural and urban systems. Zeenat currently is contributing to several national and international bodies, including the steering committee of the Green Economy Coalition, the Future Urban CAN, to name a few. And she's also chairing the working group on rural housing, and previously has served in advisory roles with UNEP, Niti Aayog, the Ministry of Rural Development, and many other global networks on climate action. The panelists for this session are Mr. K Singh. He's the distinguished member of the Indian Forest Services and has held senior leadership roles, including the Principal Chief Conservator of Forests and Head of Forest Force, and previously also as Chief Wildlife Warden, as well as the Secretary of Chhattisgarh State Innovation Commission, the CEO of the State Nodal Agency for Watershed, and the Director of the Chhattisgarh Academy of Administration. So quite a diverse set of roles and responsibilities. Our next speaker is Mr. Prabhakar Lingareddy. He is the Executive Vice President and Head of Social Investments in ITC Limited, where he leads major social and environmental initiative and contributes to company's sustainability strategy through its Sustainability Compliance and Review Committee. He also serves on CII's National Committee on CSR and Water, and is part of the steering committee of the India Sanitation Coalition, in addition to assessing the ICSI National CSR Awards for the past 3 years. So Mr. Lingareddy will be talking more from the water perspective. And our last speaker is Dr. K.T. Parthiban, who's the Dean of the Forestry in Tamil Nadu Agriculture University. Dr. Parthiban is known for his pioneering work by developing 11 high-yielding tree clones and expanding over to 1 lakh hectares of industrial plantations. He's established India's first industrial agroforestry consortium and an agroforestry business incubator, developed mini clonal technology producing over 10 million quality seedlings annually, and introducing India's first comprehensive tree insurance cover. So now I would like to invite the moderator and our panelists on the dais, please. These panelists, of course, bring experience from very different ecosystems and institutional lenses, but all of them are united by a shared commitment of balancing ecological, social, and economic goals in the landscape restoration. So with that, I invite the moderator, Zeenat, to take the conversation forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth, and thank you, WRI and TRI and ICC for this invitation. I am not an ecologist, not an agriculture person. However, I've had experience of engaging with many experts in the field. So, although I am at no, with no authority can I be speaking on many of the subjects that you will be, and that's the reason why I think the only claim to fame is that I can ask some questions, and we will be enlightened by your insights. Siddharth asked me to look at your really deep experience and insights from two sort of perspectives. One, of course, is to enlighten all of us to the sort of in interventions and initiatives you've taken, which are showcased to the world, but it's only you who know the deep processes behind it. And then, of course, to look at what really enabled the successes. How did you manage to tide over the challenges? And where do you see are the enablers to scale. So I'm going to start with, so I do have some written questions here. And I'm going to start maybe the first round of the discussion from you, Prabhakar ji. And you know, we are looking at ITC with a lot of appreciation. You know, you've been inspiring from an industrial perspective of what you've been able to do, bringing different stakeholders together for restoration work, and both building environmental capital, ecological capital, and social capital together. So if you can share with us one specific story of an intervention, and how do you see the aspects of scalability in that sort of story? Over to you.
Morning, everybody. Very happy to be here and participating in this narrative. And on a lighter note, I'm also happy to be here. This side, this place looks much more warmer than what I've experienced there, actually. So what I will try to do, Zeenat, is, before even I get into an example, because examples are there for everybody to read in our sustainability report, etc. But before that, just touch upon in terms of the story behind the story, so to say. And the whole discussion was actually in terms of how do we take it from pilots to scale, any interventions. Core to our approach has been what I call as 3 S's. One is strategy, second is structure, and the third is systemic thinking. And why I say it's important is, especially when you're talking of hyper-local interventions, specific to a particular context, etc., it's inbuilt in our strategy. The way it's inbuilt in our strategy is we focus our interventions to start with in our catchment areas. The catchment areas could be the factory catchments or the agribusiness catchments. The fact that we start from there, in a way actually by default forces you to look at a very hyper-local context. It becomes like a bottoms-up per se. The second example from a structure perspective is we have what we call as a core area perspective plan. If I'm working in 200 locations, we do once in a year a intensive core area perspective planning for that particular geography, which looks at what are the environment or ecological challenges, what are the socio-economic challenges, and what are the cultural nuances, contexts, etc. And based on that, we actually evolve on a set of priorities that we need to do. And therefore, when you are designing any intervention, you have already started cognizing for that particular context. More importantly, as you do this core area perspective planning, you are also involving the stakeholders and community, even in the need identification. So they become part of the whole exercise. The last piece which I wanted to sort of, before I give the example, is the systemic thinking. I had a function what we call as social investments. And this function was started almost 20 years back, much before sustainability, etc. came into vogue, much before the CSR rules came into vogue. The reason we called it as investment, social investments, is to have a long-term perspective, long-term thinking. And the systemic perspective that we have is what we call as transforming lives and landscapes. And each of these 4 words actually is very important. We are talking of transformation. We are talking of lives, we are talking of landscapes with an and. And I think whatever we have been doing, even when we work in water or any of the things, the element of livelihood is also incorporated into that. The moment you incorporate livelihood also into that, sustenance becomes much, much more easier. So quickly I have quite a few examples, but as Siddharth was mentioning, and I also looked at the other panelists, I thought first I'll probably speak of restoration of common lands, forestry, etc., but I will leave that to my distinguished panelists. The one that probably is also very close to my heart is the whole aspect of water. And this was our earliest intervention that we started. So we have a very unique approach where we call as a layering and laddering. So when we started our work in water, we started basically with the typical watershed development and water conservation, water harvesting structures, what we call as the supply side. But what we realized was you can do only that much through that route. You have to also focus on the demand side of water. And that is where we started focusing, brought in that intervention. What we also realized was that when you talk of water, water is not isolated for a particular geography. It's part of a larger ecosystem. And therefore, we started working on river basins and sub-basins, where we said any intervention that we do, let's try working at a sub-basin level. We already worked in 4 basins. We started in a small way from Kolans near Bhopal, then Mureru near Bhadrachalam. Then we started work in God River Basin in close to Pune. And that was one of our most successful interventions. Based on that, we started then the Upper Bhavani in Coimbatore. And very recently, we started work in South Pennar River Basin in Bangalore, actually. So river basin got layered onto that. What we also realized, the learning was when we started our water work, we were basically cognizing for scarcity aspects in terms of drought, etc. What we are now realizing is the intensity of rainfall tends to be so high in a very, very short period of time. You also need to cognize for the flooding aspect, actually. So that's a new dimension that we have actually brought into the picture. So that's how the entire water ecosystem is what we have been working. Little bit more details probably I'll speak in the next part of it.
Thank you. Fascinating. Both the strategy, system structure, systemic thinking, and I think from there, the one principle, if I may say, I'm extracting out for, because you can't really rubber stamp these solutions, but the one principle that I'm sort of extracting out is the involvement of the communities right from visioning and need identification. So it's not a later add-on thing. So I think that's one principle that probably leads to sustainability and ensures that things. I'd like to come to you, Dr. Parthiban, on this and actually move a little bit into specific solutions. And agroforestry being one, sort of, you can use your mic there, yeah. And, to bring in that solution which looks at both ecological resilience and livelihoods, beyond explaining how that happens, I think we'd also like to hear from you how you get the community of the farmers, to understand this and take it forward. So.
Great. Thanks, moderator. All the distinguished guests on the dais, all the participants, distinguished. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very pleased to be here. Thanks to Dr. Rishika and the entire team of WRI for having invited me. This is a very simple model. This model, of course, it is invented today, maybe 2 decades back, 2004 and 5. And the whole country was looking for, translation. Forests have been translated into a conservation. India is the only country where 95 to 96% of the forest is closed forest. You and me have no role to play. So what you will do then? Very simple model. Take paper. At time of independence, per capita paper consumption was less than 2 kilos. Population was only 30 crores. 30 crore population, less than 2 kilo paper, the 100% raw material was sourced from natural forest. To produce 1 kilo paper, I have to use 2.5 kilo minimum of wood, maximum 5 kilos of wood, depending on the species and the quality. What had happened? 1980s, the country has grown vertically, population, industrialization, and computer was introduced into the country. After introduction of computers, policy makers, bureaucrats, politicians, everyone thought that, okay, paper consumption will be eradicated, eliminated. You don't believe. After introduction of computers, it has gone to 6 crores to 8 crores, population from 30 crores to 80 crores. Today, you and me are in digital era. Everyone says digital India. Paperless transaction, cashless transaction. No paper is used. You don't believe. Today, per capita paper consumption is 16 kilos. Dr. Prabhakar is here. 16 kilos per individual. Population is 145 crore. 98% of the wood is sourced from outside the natural forest. Less than 2% is from forests. So what is that? Same is the case for timber and timber resources. India was originally exporters. Indian timber has gone globally. Britishers were traveling across the world by using a ship. For a shipbuilding, they have used only oak. Oak will take more than 100 years to 150 years to reach harvestable maturity. When they visited India, they are fascinated with the Indian timbers, particularly teak in India. So teak in India was harvested, exported to rest of the world, converted into ship. The ship was traveling across Commonwealth countries. All the Commonwealth countries were once ruled by Britishers, traveled by ship made out of Indian wood. Such a huge, prestigious country. Now if you go to Indian market, you ask for a teak. They will always say, what teak you want? Immediately our people always say, Burma teak. You have to go to Burma only. Because Burma has banned exporting round logs to India. And some people say, mini Burma. There is no country in the world called mini Burma. But still it is available in the market. Otherwise, Nigeria, Ghana, Costa Rica, Colombia, South Africa, they never pronounce India, though India is known as a teak naturally grown. These countries, they never grow teak naturally. So that is a very simple model where I am taking two systems. So this concept of restoration, what is this? Definitely forest restoration, where it is public sector undertaking. But what we are doing is landscape restoration outside the forest. Exactly in the form of, as moderator indicated, it's a agroforestry. What we use is not a simple agroforestry, we use a value chain model agroforestry. Because agroforestry is not the new concept. When the question of agriculture started, it started in the natural forests. Originally it was called shifting cultivation. Agriculture was originated from forests. Now today, we are taking forests into an agriculture. Exactly this is what it happens. That agriculture is a traditional livelihood. Today what we are doing is not a traditional, not a livelihood. It is an economy and it is also sustaining the resources for the entire industries in the country. So I am from Tamil Nadu, where we have taken this model for Tamil Nadu for the last 2 decades, 2004 and 5. When we designed this model of value chain model and agroforestry, there are 3 components which we identified as challenges. Production level challenges. Technology is not available. Even the technology is available, it is not catering to the needs of the society. What the society wants, they want a high yielding short rotations. They want an early grower, early harvester. Tree means they think that 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Today you don't believe, I am harvesting trees in 18 months for a paper industry and the energy industries. Even for a plywood and panel sector, we are harvesting in 36 months to 48 months. So that technology has come to the system that eliminated all the production level challenges. Processing level challenges, industries. Industries are traditional people. They never want to change. Even again, I am taking a paper. Originally, paper was from grasses, then from a softwood. Today, no industry in the country is using softwood. They are all using hardwoods. You give any hardwoods, which is a lignocellulosic biomass. That can be converted into the systems. Exactly this is what we have. We have identified all the challenges of restoration, particularly for agriculture landscape. India is known for agriculture. 25% is a forest. 23 plus 2% outside the forest. 25%. The 45 to 55% is still under agriculture. This agriculture is facing a lot of challenges. How agriculture has grown, how we are now climbing. When the population was 30 crore, the country was a hunger. When the population was 80 crore, the country was a sustainable country, sufficient country. Today we are a surplus country. This is technology leverage. Exactly this is what we are using. Technology leveraged agroforestry for restoring agriculture landscape. Identify the challenges. Production level, processing level, marketing level. Intervene. Developing varieties, developing model, which are site-specific, climate resilient, acceptable economically by the society, acceptable environmentally by the society and the industries. And the industries are now towards the agroforestry sector. Today morning also there was a question. Financing. Today all industries started financing. You take Tamil Nadu alone, almost all sectors of industry, pulp, ply, timber, they are all financing on the restoration systems. The idea is, it's a forestry, agroforestry plantation development. Originally, we were looking for only 1 or 2 crops. Today, you don't believe. Biologically diverse agroforestry species, that's the role of mine. We introduced each and every species. Very classical model. Paper industry used only bamboos. After that, they shifted to eucalyptus. They never listened. We exposed one of the variety called Malabar neem. It's a native, indigenous, fast-growing amenable for paper production. When it was introduced 2006, industries never accepted. 2030, they have accepted. 7 years it took us. Now today, it's a mandatory species. Exactly same is the case, ply panel, timber and non-timber, everything it is going on. So what is the system is here, the value chain is very simple. What are the challenges available in all sectors? We always work in a system called production to consumption, PCS model. What is needed for the soil? How do you protect all the resources? How do you enhance? Today, restoration without money, nothing will happen. I'm not for the investing of restoration, but the money where the landowners, the farmers. India is one unique country. Over 75% of the land use system is India is fragmented. Small land uses. Less than 5 acres. You cannot ask them, oh, you restore for economy, for ecology, stability. They will never do it. So what do you want? You do with economy and environment. Exactly this is what we are doing. So ultimately now what we are doing is, at least 4 years you maintain the plantations. After 4 years, once it started giving the carbon credit model, then automatically you can go ahead, harvest the materials, get the money also. Once again, you go for regenerating the materials. Exactly this is what we are doing it. So totally, in 2004 and 5, we were not able to plant 200 acres. Today, annually, we are planting 50,000 acres. Annually, 50,000 acres. Though predominantly we are going for an economic model, but during this process of growth and development, these trees improve the soil. We have a very systematic analysis of the regulation services, soil and water conservation, water improvement, supporting services, how this is supporting the biological diversity, how it is supporting the society, and the cultural services, how it is valuing the entire cultural rituals of the total society. The entire system of environmental ecosystem services have been taken into consideration. So ultimately, we expand this agroforestry model in the farmlands, judicially leveraging the entire system for economical production, ecological conservation, and ultimately restoration is with a successful model. That's the message. Thanks a lot. We'll meet you again.
Thank you, Dr. Parthiban. I think your passion is clearly visible. Yeah, and I think the excitement is also viral. It sort of gets to everybody. And for me, I think the question that was coming in as you were speaking, which eventually you did answer in the last few sentences, and I would like to highlight that the thought that was coming to my mind was, in these agroforestry models, with the industry in focus, how are we ensuring soil ecology maintenance or supporting services? And I think you made that very clear on the fact that that is a focus of how you choose your species and how it is then grown. So I think that is a very pertinent point again in the restoration space to look at ecology and economy, but the ecology cannot be at the cost of the economy. So I think thank you very much. And I will take that question, the next question, to Mr. Singh. Chhattisgarh has been a space which we've, in the development sector, looked at with great interest. My first experience of what was happening, in fact, in the forest space, was actually with my association with Climate Action Network South Asia, when we came to Chhattisgarh to understand the watershed management, the forest management, etc., work that was happening from the climate. I think it was when the climate action plans at the state level were being made. So I was very impressed by the state's interventions. And but I really want to take your thoughts into now how a public policy making person, sort of in that mind, and your role, to see the challenges that you have experienced and barriers to the integrated approach, which brings in all the different stakeholders together, and also the different demands that the ecosystem has on itself. So over to you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Gina ji. First of all, thank you, Gina ji, and my fellow panelists and dear participants. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my views. Broadly, I'll be speaking about the barriers or enablers for upscaling, because in the previous session, I think the previous speakers have said that we all sitting here either from the world of academia or practice, we believe that return on investment in restoration is very high. And we have also seen that there are several pilots that have been undertaken in the recent past across the country, which has shown very good result. But what I feel is, that what matters in democracy is the political attention. And for politicians, it is still a kind of a peripheral concern, not the essential building block of a developmental agenda. That is my first concern. And if you really want to upscale the landscape eco-restoration, this has to be the signal priority of the highest level in the politics. I've never heard a chief minister talking about landscape restoration. And we also agreed, and it was discussed in the previous section, that there need to increase the pace and scale before it becomes too late and the irreversible degradation starts. So how do you do that? That's the biggest challenge, I would say. Because unless there is a political will, you cannot have enabling policy environment, long-term policy support, and also the coordination, which is probably one of the biggest challenges, not only within the government, because now our policy says that we need to move from whole of government to the whole of society approach, where we need to have coordination and partnership with the civil society organization, the academicians, the funding agencies. And so everyone, how can we do that without a political will? I think that is the most important. And why we have not been able to get that, the desired political attention, one of the reasons is that the projects that I have seen, they're all of a small scale and a very short project cycle, up to 5 years. I don't think, that politician will trust that landscape eco-restoration can solve bigger problems, with such a small scale, because scale matters for politicians. And also, the time frame. Now, ecological processes that take time to get established and deliver results. It cannot happen in 5 years. The another problem that I have come across, that there is a huge problem with the capacity of restoration ecology. It's not that simple. We hire people from outside. I've seen it in NGOs, also in the government programs where we have started hiring people from outside. By the time you train them and they understand the political, social, and economic environment of that landscape, they have started looking for the another job opportunities because the project is good. So attrition rate is very high. Now, we cannot, we are talking about adaptive management because the many surprises that that landscape will give you. You need a long time frame, at least of 20 years. And what I see, that you take on the one hand the European Union, they have come up with a law. We don't have a policy. So the first thing that we need is a state-level landscape eco-restoration policy. Although in the previous speakers, I was also nodal agency, CEO of the nodal agency for watershed. I do agree that we follow the principles of restoration, but I would say watershed programs are not land restoration because the focus is different. We are not focusing in a watershed management, largely the focus is on soil moisture conservation and livelihood. We are not focusing on the species composition, the structure of ecosystem, the functionality of the ecosystem, and the exchange that takes place. There are different parameters that doesn't get the kind of priority that it should receive. So we need a policy which envisages to restore the diverse ecosystem, which includes agriculture ecosystem, forest ecosystem, wetlands, grasslands, which is being missed out, the mined out areas, and peri-urban and urban areas, because they have a very different kind of challenges. And when it comes to connectivity, the watershed only focuses on hydrological connectivity. The other aspects of connectivity, the gene, the species, all other aspects of exchange, that's not given priority. And because of the linear structures and land use changes, this poses a huge challenge. So unless we include all, and they will be the bigger producer of the biggest drivers of degradation. They will contribute in a major way to the GDP, but at the same time, they'll be the biggest, challenge for the environmental sustainability. So unless we take into account the entire area and look into the connectivity separately, as a separate issue, we cannot have resilience or ecological integrity that we have been talking. So first thing is the policy. If we want integrated planning and coordinated implementation, then monitoring has to be at the highest level. Without that, it is almost impossible to get, which I can say from my more than 40 years of experience in the government. Like, you see what is happening in a PM Gati Shakti. It is being monitored by the Prime Minister. And the lessons from the environmental governance across the world also suggest that coordination among various government departments, and as we say, moving from whole of government to whole of society, is a huge challenge. So if the centrifugal force is more, you need a very powerful centripetal force. And that can only be, people like chief ministers in the state. So that is very important that we have a governance structure where things are being monitored by the chief minister. And there's a unified digital platform which brings in accountability, and you can see all the planning and the planning process. And I'm happy that some like WRI, the work that has done, that will be very useful for that platform. So you need such kind of platform. Another issue that I feel is about the metrics. What are we measuring? Are we measuring like you see the European law? They have said they will measure what from forest ecosystem. They'll manage the area under uneven edged forest, the biodiversity index, the bird index, and some of the provisioning services. Like why it is important to have provisioning services, measurement of provisioning services. Like what we have done in India, like for some protected areas, we had valuation of ecosystem services. That's once in a while. Now, if you want that it should be factored while allocating resources, then like every year you have economic survey. So unless, that's an annual exercise, unless you have something like that. And secondly, if you have established monitoring, reporting and verification system, 1 minute left, sorry, so there are a few more issues so I think then it will be very difficult to maybe the payment of ecosystem services, because the most difficult thing is to create and sustain interests of the community. So unless you have a very strong incentive system, and I think the PS right now we have EFT, around 85,000 crores are being distributed every year to the state, but it's an untied fund. It doesn't go to the people who are involved in protecting those so-called dense forests. So apart from there are a few more issues I think which are very important for upscaling, which I'll discuss maybe probably if I get the second round.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. I think your words were music to my ears, because I am studying from my own research, looking at urban ecologies, and when you talk about integrated bioregional systems, you include the threat of urbanization, if I may say, call it threat, but also maybe a potential to the larger thing. But I also, the whole aspect of connectivity and probably a little conflict between connectivity and state level planning, because we are talking about ecosystems that don't recognize state boundaries, and therefore coordination across states for those bioregions is another issue that I think would become an aspect. So, but thank you. I think the fact that it requires the political will at the highest level, at the national level, and very, very long-term planning, 20 years, 25 years. Without that, you can't really look at landscape. So I think that's a very strong recommendation, if I may say, to go forward with. The first round, if I may, we've heard examples, we've heard some principles coming in, and I think both in terms of long-term, bottom-up, community-based, and economic sort of reasoning that brings things together. So I'm going to get back to the second round and maybe shorter, because we are going to be stretched for time, and I would like to open a few questions to the audience. Go back to you, Mr. Prabhakar. Having talked about the pilot, I think, and I'm taking a cue from what Singh Saab just said, is this whole of society. So managing coordination and partnerships involved in these pilots, and these can be very different interests that are there. How do you do that? What are the sort of common entry points when you get in? And do these different perspectives of the stakeholders influence the sustainability strategies at your industry, and your own business models for that matter? So just over to you.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's the stakeholders who decide the direction, actually. So there's no doubt and ambiguity on that. In fact, like what Mr. Singh said, political will is absolutely a good starting point. But from our own experience, I'm just giving 3 quick numbers. We've done social forestry in about 6 lakh acres till now. Very similar to the model that Mr. Parthiban explained, where these were lands which were not fit for anything else. We've converted them into forestry. We work in about 6 lakh acres on biodiversity, including restoration of commons, restoration of encroached lands, etc. I've seen some, all this started small, and we've reached this scale over a period of time. I've seen 5 aspects which actually have helped us move the scale. I think the first and foremost is purpose. Am I doing it just to be seen, to be visible, a small scale, meeting the dots, so to say, or do I have a purpose of really making a difference at scale? And I think we've been fortunate to have our leadership ensuring that it's a purpose. We have even publicly stated targets for 2030, for example. Second is, do you have the perseverance? Like what he said, it doesn't happen overnight. All this has happened over 10 years, 15 years, etc. Anything that needs to be moved to scale needs perseverance. Third is partnerships. Partnerships for what? Partnerships for convergence. It could be the implementation partner, it could be a knowledge partner, technical partner, government partners, the local panchayat institution, government. The role that we played was in terms of orchestrating the ecosystem for the convergence. Fourth one is protocols. When you're moving from a pilot to a scale, do we have a playbook and toolkit which lists protocols which can be easily adapted to different contexts? Now, when you have all this, the last P comes in, which is productivity of resources. If you have to scale, you have to work towards a model where your per unit cost is much, much cost effective. It's whether it's your financial resources or human resources, etc. It's only when all these 5 elements come together can you really move from pilot to scale. That's what my response.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhakar ji. I think when you spoke of purpose, I'm again connecting it back to Singh Saab's long-term vision. And I think that purpose, to be a shared purpose over the long term, is a key challenge, I think, especially in contexts where we talk only 5-year election to election issues. So that itself is a challenge at a national and probably also local level, because perspectives change very fast. But moving to Dr. Saab, Parthiban ji, we have seen from in technology institutions becoming incubators for entrepreneurs. Yeah, and they are now incubators in every IIT and every NIT, if I may. So, but this is a different kind of incubator that you set in place, a different kind of catalyst between community groups and farmer groups and industry. with both of whom's long-term interest is that the ecology is healthy, because otherwise neither economies will sustain. If you can tell us a little bit about the TNAU incubator and how does science, sort of help you bridge these two things together?
In fact, we are dealing with the agricultural land use system. So what is the thing is, technology is available, industries are ready to take it, and all these things. So what is needed? Institutional mechanism. Exactly, this is what we are doing it. There are two institutions which we have created. One is called Consortium of Industrial Agroforestry, where all the stakeholders will play a role. All the stakeholders will be enrolled as a member, and whatever the challenges we are facing, that is resolved by the respective members. Exactly this is what. WRI is one of the members. They are just only translating whatever it is available. Second incubator, during this, because consortium was created in 2016. 5 years of implementation, we came to know that more than this consortium, we need one more institution who can translate this into a business model. So that was the India's first agroforestry business incubator, designed by me. Of course, now it is implemented in Tamil Nadu. And we have more than 250 startup companies now, and predominantly involving farmers, middlemen, unemployed youth, tribal community, even Adimalay tribal group who is here, they are also one of our incubators. So I am saying this, we created this, what they want, one is a technology, we will provide, if it is available with the TNIU. If it is not with the TNIU, with the other agencies, we facilitate. One. Finance, we link with all government systems, all government projects, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, TIC loans, respective state government, Startup India, Startup Tamil Nadu. So all the funding mechanism we provide. Third thing is, bankers will every day, every week they visit incubator. And those who want money, those who want with the good proposals, they can come on every Friday. Bankers, research institutes, and the proponent. We sit together, we value the project, then we will be given. So during the last 5 years, maybe after Corona alone, we have given more than almost 10 to 15 crore to the incubators to facilitate the industry. Third thing is marketing. So technology we provide, finance we facilitate, and marketing we link with all the consortium industries. Exactly this is what it owns. And originally within India, today during the last 2 years, we started exporting as well. So definitely it needs institutional backup. That institutional backup, maybe as Sir said, maybe political will also, government should also listen to that. Fortunately now, a lot of policies are gaining. Based on this system, Government of Tamil Nadu is coming with the Tamil Nadu State Agroforestry Policy. Even other government also referring our model, taking it to a different policy. One of the state government in northern part of India, they just visited recently, learned the whole model. They wanted to implement this not to replace, but to supplement the existing agricultural land use system. So definitely, incubation system works out very well, but more of the participation of the stakeholders. Stakeholders, empty. There is no distinction. From A to Z, anyone can be a stakeholder. Only thing is how they will be involved in restoration, agroforestry land use system, how this will be converted into a business model, what are the value-added products. Today, from a tree, we don't waste any products. Leaf will goes to CBG, or leaf will go to activated char. And anything less than 2 inches girtha wood will go to chips for a co-firing process. 2 inches to 8 inches, it go to the minimal paper industry. 8 inches to 32 inches, ply and panel industry. Anything more than 32 inches, timber industry. Root will go to other products. Bark will go to energy sector. So 100% total. People always talk about circular economy or bioeconomy. Exactly this model satisfies the total demand, for which each and every product industry is linked. That's a message.
Thank you. I'm wondering what goes back to the soil. A question that is on my mind. And in that respect, I actually wanted to go to Mr. Singh to say, we have a lot of push into the economic models for restoration, but there need to be checks and balances. There needs to be regulatory systems. There need to be the championing of enablers and the support. So your experience in Chhattisgarh on how, what could be done, and where this whole ecosystem is now could be balanced in that sense. And also, if in that you could add your experience of managing cross-scalar coordination across from local to maybe national, wherever Chhattisgarh had to engage with that process. So over to you.
Your first question, it's always a challenge to keep a balance between the diversity and abundance. The moment a species becomes economically very important, like in case of Aula, when we had unified Madhya Pradesh, it's, the green apple syndrome, people cut and, the Aula trees started disappearing. That can only be, the community start regulating. Only then you can keep a balance. Second, if you're not measuring biodiversity and not really valuing that and compensating for that, what is the incentive for people to retain that diversity? So that is important. Second thing, now we are talking about, high value, low volume product. The technology becomes very important. Now, unfortunately, our national institutions are not moving to the rural areas so that the biomass can be converted into a high value product. And there's a range of possibilities, as Dr. Parthiban said, about energy, biochemicals. I'll just give you a few real life examples, Chhattisgarh MAP Federation. We paid around 1 crore rupees to CFTRI for developing energy bar. Mawa Laddu is very popular, but it will not appeal to the Gen Z. They are looking for energy bar. Because you have to determine the self-life and provide the machine. We paid 1 crore for button lag to IIT Kanpur. They have not been able to deliver. They need more money. IIT BHU is working on hair dye from Kosa. So there are immense possibilities. These piecemeal approaches are not going to work. Ultimately, we need to understand that we are talking about a Viksit Bharat, developed India. 44% of our labor force is employed in agriculture, as against 1 to 3% in developed countries. Now you need to, by 2047, if not 3%, you need to bring it down substantially. How can you bring that unless your processing units are of a large scale? And that, of course, you cannot also deal with that growing disparity, which was discussed by Dr. Ruchika Singh in the first session, which is, I think, equally important challenge. Only if you have decentralized MSME, biomass-based, which is bringing out, and we are catering to the pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals, cosmetics, energy, the range of, possibilities. But that require appropriate technology. That's another very, very important issue. Unless you do that, you cannot keep that balance. People will understand. Value the diversity, compensate through PES. For that, you need the desired kind of metrics. Another very important thing is that we really get a feeling that we have enough knowledge. I would say that we have very limited knowledge of restoration ecology, and it has to be context specific. For that, we need to have an integrated knowledge system where traditional indigenous knowledge is valid, but the best scientific knowledge is also brought in. And how do we, I was very happy to see the Citizen app. We need to, people must be engaged in collecting, the reliable data, which is a huge challenge in India. But higher level institutions must be engaged in designing research, and we jointly interpret so that it doesn't become a pathological clinic. You took the blood and don't know what happened. That's the only way you can build capacity of, across these, and you create a system, when then gets converted into a knowledge system. Another one issue which I would like to say, that we have been talking, our Prime Minister says about life, but make all eco-restoration project, behavioral change is one very important component, and reward them, either as a community or an individual. There are many things that can be done, but these are important things if you really want to upscale. And if you are thinking of another very important issue is that if it is not getting priority, try to change the narrative, make it more powerful by linking it with the Viksit Bharat, because that's the overarching agenda of the country, to try to have a very strong linkage with the Viksit Bharat, so that it becomes more powerful narrative for the politician, because every state is having its own, plan. So it gets attention at the highest level. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think a very strong message that we need to also probably look at what Viksit means. If we do not have our ecological systems of good health, then we are not really Viksit in that sense. So maybe that's a narrative that we need to strengthen. And I think the point that you made about communities being part of the measurement and the balance, and I think the Citizens app that we saw is one step towards that. When that was being shown, a connect that came to my mind was the potential right now that we have of community radios across the country, I think 400 plus of them, and community journalists in the rural areas who can actually be the eyes and ears and hands of such an app to provide data and also educate the local communities about what's happening. So I think that it's a very strong possibility and potential that this app provides. I'm going to, with these very deep insights that all of you presented, I think we need to open to the audience. And I would, I'm sure there are questions or comments or reactions to what our panelists have just said. So maybe not, we have, how much time do we have, Siddharth? Another 7 minutes or so? 7 minutes or so. So yeah, could somebody please take the mic to, please introduce yourself and keep the question short. You might want to address it to one or all or more than one panelist, please. Yes, sir.
I am R.S. Negi, a development practitioner. I just want a short comment from the panelist. I mean, the restoration and rejuvenation is, we have been trying since so many years and all. Should we also, what is your comment on, should we just leave it in the natural process? No intervention, no human intervention. Let the nature complete in passive, process, not in the active process. Just a short comment on that.
Yes, sir. I think.
See, largely we have been resorting to passive restoration, what you are saying, But when you really want to accelerate, and now we feel, that we need to accelerate that to mitigate the impacts of climate change. So definitely, otherwise, ideally, you control the drivers of degradation and leave it to the nature. The passive restoration will take care, but it will take longer time. If you really want to accelerate the process, you need active restoration. And I think it's the time that we have to look for both passive and active, because active restoration requires money.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we have another.
Ekajana, I'm from the urban sector. Very, very music kind of words which we heard about place-based restoration, that is circulatory, community involvement, connectivity, coordination, and of course the common entry point. Now the question, my basic question is that when we are talking about place-based restoration, is there something like wasteland? This is a very old concept which I think should be abundant.
Is there something called wasteland? Anyone?
Sir, the terminology is now replaced with the degraded systems. It's not really wasteland, it's a degraded land. The question is translated, because predominantly, the question previously, active or passive restoration. Who is the owner of the land? If the owner of the land is public sector, totally restoration is totally different. If it's the private sector, it's totally different. And country like India, highly fragmented. So automatically, each and every site restoration principle is totally different. What is the need? That's all. And for your system is very, very simple there. Ultimately, the concept is very simple. It's involvement. It's involvement of the total people. So if they are involved, definitely it is going to be a very systematic approach. Because the question originally, when the land use classification started, it started with the 8 different land use classification in the whole country. And the first 4 classes are agriculture based. The last 4 classes are forestry based. And the 8th class is no forestry, only the short shrub grasses only. These 8 classes, or people have used the word wastelands. 1980s, there was a board called National Wasteland Development Board, NWDB. But today, people are talking not as a wasteland, it's a degraded land, wasted due to the the practices. The defaulty agriculture practices, intensive use of machineries, and the exposure of leaving the land as a fallows. Even the question is now, current fallows and the permanent fallows. Some people say permanent fallows are wastelands. But they are fallows. Originally, 5 years back, that was with the agriculture. They are not doing it agriculture because it was not remunerated to them. So that is the case. People are not using really wasteland today. They use either wasted or degraded. That's very simple.
Thank you. I think we have one question here, which I'll take last, and then maybe I'll go back to. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nishkarsh. I'm a co-founder of an organization called Momentum Shifts. We are basically building infrastructure for mainstreaming narratives in social impact and climate. My question to the panel after this great discussion is, what is the importance you see for community engagement and behavior shifts if you're looking at that long-term mindset shifts? And what are the big barriers today in achieving that effectively in terms of community ownership?
I think if I were to sort of put one word, which is a barrier, is trust. I think you cannot get the community involved unless they trust you. And trust comes, again, I go back to the thing, is when you design your intervention keeping community in the center, when your sort of community gets a feeling that you are there for them, it's an intervention by them, of them, for them. It's not ITC's intervention. I think that's the fundamental thing. I'm being a little philosophical, but that's the key, actually.
I think that's a very, very sort of deep point. Okay. Last, because I am seeing the timer in front of me. Can somebody get a mic to them, please, very quick? Yeah. I have a last question here. I have 1.5 minutes. I still have a last
Actually, your
point
right
from
side
them.
is strong, ma'am. You are not seeing this side.
Sorry.
And thank you so much, ma'am. Excellent panel, ma'am. Excellent panel. Sir, my question is to Singh, sir, actually. In your discussion, I think 5 to 7 times you said that policymakers need to be responsible, especially the Chief Minister. We all agree, but none of the Chief Minister is listening as of now. The problem is, sir, you know, the current state is like if we need to make it a policy, either the politician himself or herself is so conscious about nature, that is one, or otherwise there is a people's movement. Like we saw the farmer movement, the farmer laws. We saw the anti-corruption movement, the corruption laws. Are we missing some movement in this landscape science? So that, you know, it reaches to the, you know, the conscience of the policymakers to make it. अभी 2 हफ्ते पहले pollution पे movement हुआ तो पुलिस ने बहुत मारा कि how can you demand the clean air? So if we demand the clean land, clean agriculture, तो anti-government तो नहीं हो जाएगा. So like how to actually make it a very important issue, so that's the question.
आपने जो मूवमेंट की बात कही ना, मूवमेंट की शायद आवश्यकता नहीं है, एक बड़े स्केल की आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि अभी तक जो प्रयास हुए, जिस समग्रता की हम बात कर रहे थे कि उसमें पेरी अर्बन, अर्बन, वेटलैंड, एग्रीकल्चर, फॉरेस्ट सब है, और वो डेमोन्स्ट्रेट कर रहा है, जिसमें हम अभी जितनी बातें कर रहे थे, टेक्नोलॉजी की भी बात कर रहे थे, क्योंकि अभी बात हो रही थी कि भाई कम्युनिटी का ट्रस्ट कैसे ले. तो आप जब भी रेस्टोरेशन का वर्क करते हैं, एक बहुत बड़ी समस्या ओवर यूटिलाइजेशन. तो आप क्या करेंगे, उसको रेस्ट तो चाहिए ना. तो जहाँ उसको आपने रेस्ट दिया तो लाइवलीहुड तो इम्पैक्ट होगा किसी का. तो ऐसे बहुत सारे हमारे कुछ प्रोजेक्ट्स वर्ल्ड बैंक के मध्य प्रदेश में बंद किए गए, उन पर बहुत एलिगेशन लगे कि इंडिजिनस कम्युनिटी की लाइवलीहुड को इम्पैक्ट किया, वुमेन के लाइवलीहुड को इम्पैक्ट किया. तो सवाल ये उठता है कि एक लॉन्ग टर्म का ट्रस्ट, और आप कह रहे हैं लैंड यूज चेंज करने के लिए, जैसे हम डाइवर्सिफिकेशन की बात करें, स्पेशियल एंड टेम्पोरल बोथ है ना, कि अभी हम लोगों ने बहुत सारे बातें जो पॉलिनेटर्स की कमी और इकोलॉजिकल समस्या उसकी नहीं की. तो इसमें लॉन्ग टर्म ट्रस्ट की बात है, और जो इंसेंटिव स्ट्रक्चर है उसकी बात है. तो एक्चुअली अगर हम देखें कि जो रूरल अर्बन डिवाइड है, उसका एक बड़ा कारण है फेलियर ऑफ रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पॉलिसी. जब तक हम रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, जो पीएस और इसकी बात कर रहे हैं, जैसे ईएफटी में 85,000 करोड़ ट्रांसफ़र हो रहा है, किसके नाम पे? डेंस फॉरेस्ट के नाम पे. लेकिन जो हैबिटेट शेयर करता है, हमारे यहाँ हाथी मार देते हैं, करीब 60-70 लोग मर जाते हैं. कई घर अगर पक्के के बने होते तो लोग नहीं मरते, घरों में मर जाते हैं. क्या वो पैसा उसके लिए नहीं उपयोग किया जाता था? क्योंकि उन्होंने जंगल बचाया है तो आज मर रहे हैं, उनके फसल खाए जा रहे हैं. अभी भी आप एक्स ग्रेसिया दे रहे हो, कंपनसेशन नहीं दे रहे हो, ये पैसा जा सकता था. तो जो रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूटिव पॉलिसी की बात कर रहे हैं हम, जो जैसे आपने इकोसिस्टम सर्विसेज दिया, आप मेजर ही नहीं कर रहे हो तो कैसे मांगोगे? तो डिमांड के लिए जो है कि आपका राइट बने, ये भी साथ साथ करना पड़ेगा. और अभी एक बड़े स्केल पे, और साथ में देयर आर मेनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, आई वुड से दे आर वेरी क्लोज टू द पॉलिटिकल पावर्स. How do you access, how do you persuade, how do you do advocacy? I think you people know better than me. I have been on the other side. I think it's possible, it's not necessary that you always start with a movement. There are other ways to, in fact, and educate your political masters and give them that trust that yes, this process can really solve your bigger problems and give you political mileage.
I think I almost feel that that is something that I would ask you to repeat back in the end of the kind of science-based narrative and trust that we should be building for the long term. Both, I think, in the political masters as well as in the communities to understand that this can give you a long term. And there was a point that was made in the earlier discussion on investable models and not on maybe what I understand from you is the value, long-term value instead of just the financial investments that we're talking about. So what is it that is generating long-term value and for whom? But I think I've been told that the time's up, it's red colored, and I have one, but I am taking maybe 3 minutes more, 1 minute per panelist, to request you to a last sort of takeaway in terms of, we all know what we need to go to, maybe we are not all articulating it very well, but what would be, in your view, the one key enabler at whichever scale that you feel should be put into action?
I think move from the narrative of challenges to a narrative of sensing possibilities and opportunities. I think there's a lot of scope for that. And just to respond to the question, if SBM can happen, Jal Shakti can happen without movements, I'm sure restoration can also happen. It's just a question of having the belief and intent. I am a die-hard optimist.
Very simple. Technology, value chain based agroforestry as a solution for the restoration, particularly for the country like India. Because our land use system predominantly owned by, forest is owned by public sector. The remaining land is owned by private sector. So that has a beautiful restoration potential for which what is needed is technology. The technology should provide economy, environment, and the stability. That's the message.
As I discussed about, the scale, if I remember correctly, there are 3,000, few hundred watersheds in India. So there are many organizations being represented here, and you are talking about alliance. So select few, which is spread in north, east, south, west kind of a thing, and focus your resources there and bring in everything that we discussed about, planning and extra effort for coordination and bring technology, so that industrialization, you meet the aspirations of the youth and demonstrate. That demonstration is very important. Scale matters not only for market, it also matters for the government, which we always say scale of economy, scale matters for government. So I think that is my message, a practical one, that build alliance, but focus on, rather than spreading your resources in different watersheds, focus on few, 4, 5, 7, and jointly persuade the government or policy makers to bring in policy. So that is the one possibility that I see.
So with that, I don't think I'm going to summarize. We've had a very rich discussion, and I would like to thank all of you for being here, and thanks to the wonderful audience for being here. Thank you very much.
Good morning, one and all present here. On the behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the success of this panel, starting with our sincere thanks to our moderator, Ms. Zeenat Niazi, who's guided the discussion and ensuring we heard diverse and meaningful perspectives. I would also like to express our appreciation to our panelists, Mr. Prabhakar Lingareddy, Dr. K Singh, and Professor K.T. Parthiban for their rich insights and for helping us reflect on the salience of place-based landscape restoration. Today's conversation highlighted that regional pilots are not just demonstrations, but critical learning grounds for designing scalable restoration pathways. Mr. Prabhakar Lingareddy underlined the importance of watershed pilots and spoke compellingly about the role that CSR partnerships can play in sustaining and scaling them. Professor Parthiban drew our attention to agroforestry-based restoration, emphasizing how addressing market and value chain gaps can unlock restoration-linked livelihoods. Dr. K Singh brought in the crucial government perspective, reminding us that scaling integrated landscape restoration hinges on strengthened institutional capacities and interdepartmental coordination. I would also like to thank the organizing team for their meticulous planning and seamless coordination, and to all the participants for your active engagement and thoughtful reflections.